And the first thing I wanted to say is like, thanks everybody for even coming. I really appreciate it. Even though I talk about, oh my God, all these people are here, it's really nice to know that there's a great turnout for, to me, a really important topic. So, a couple things about my talk itself. I've got 45 slides to go through, and I'm hoping that they'll be entertaining enough that you don't fall asleep. But you can let me know if you do. But I've got a lot of information to share. So at certain points, I'm done with like a certain topic, I will pause. And if you have any questions, if you could please IM them to me, that's probably the best way. What was I going to say about that? I'll answer them in between each topic, or if it's something that I'm about to cover next, I'll let you know. But I will definitely address your questions because I want to make sure that everybody is addressed. The other thing you'll notice as I go through my slides is that I have footnote numbers next to some of the words because there's references. And if you look at the top, Dr. Fran actually made a little, like the cutest little mesh information prim. And you can click on that, and that is the reference list that I used for this talk. If you have any like problems accessing some of those journals, let me know, because I know some of them may not be accessible to the general public, but I'm a firm believer that information should be shared, and it doesn't matter who you are, you should have free access to accurate information. So let me know about that. Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to be spending my full attention on the talk. So if there are any IMs and things like that, I won't be paying attention to local chat, just letting you know. But at the certain points in the breaks, I will definitely be answering questions for you. So are there any questions right now I can answer? Like if you want to type them in. If not, I will get started. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay, so everybody is wondering, what is this F word that we talk about? Calling the feminist, and I know that there's all kinds of definitions and ideas and things like that. The first thing I wanted to do is share with you a quote, a Jewish quote by Hillel the Elder. And unfortunately, I can't speak in Hebrew, but Thick Brick, my partner, was kind enough to provide me with a translation. If I am not for myself, who is for me? And being for my own self, what am I? And I think one of the things that I want you to think about as we go through this talk is, if not now, then when? So, whoops, and I skipped through. That's weird. My slides just went all wonky. There we go. Oh, it totally skipped through something. Star, you remember when you said like things will go wrong? They're going wrong. I'm going to go through and find where I was. Well, then you know what? I'm going to just start here. Okay, let me start with, actually, I'm going to start this with a quote, which will probably come up out of order now. But Star, when I started talking about what I wanted to talk about in the lecture, brought up a quote that I wanted to share with you about men and women. And she said, I think men and women complement each other like salt and pepper. One is not better or worse than the other. Instead, women should strive to be the best salt, and men should strive to be the best pepper. And that metaphor kind of stuck with me, because I think the question that we have to ask sometimes is, if we're talking just about salt, it doesn't mean we're trying to bash pepper. It's just that this talk is about salt. It's about feminism. It's about women. So one thing I just want to kind of put to the forefront is that there is no gender bashing in this talk at all. And I ask, when we have our discussions on the porch also, I don't think we have to talk about controversial issues in a way that bashes other people or other ethnicities or cultures or genders. And so you'll see that here. I won't be doing that either. So the first thing I want to talk about is a term that I actually stole. I shouldn't say stole, but it's a term from Teaching and Curriculum, which is, if you look at popular media, if you look at even definitions for feminism, which you'll see in a second. They talk about equality, but in education, we also talk about this thing called equity. So if you see on my slide here, um, I tried to add an example from Second Life. You can see the three avatars that are on box, and this is equality. This is what society usually thinks equality should be. Is if we give everybody the same thing, the idea is everybody should be happy. However, the problem with that is that it's not equitable, meaning not everybody is the same. So if we give everybody the same things, it doesn't address all of their needs, especially if they're different. So my argument is that just because we have equality does not necessarily mean that we have social justice. What we need to do is ensure that we have equity first before we have equality. And the reason why I bring this now is because it's going to come and weave throughout this talk, and you'll see places where that comes up. So again, like I said before, both words were meant to be fair and just to all humans. However, the way they're accomplished is very different. Equality assumes sameness. Everything is the same. Equity is about fairness. Fairness based on difference. So an idea is that if we're all different, then treating everyone equally, exactly the same, can actually be inequitable. So an example of this, whoop, yeah, see this? My slides are all messed up. Wow. Sorry about this, everyone. I really checked this afternoon and it was fine, so I don't know what's going on. Example of this that I talked about is if you have a very large dog and a very small dog, if you give them both the same amount of food, a small cup of food, one dog's going to starve. So in that case, you're being equal, you've got equality, but you certainly don't have equity in that case. Now, let's talk about gender inequity, because that's where the slide is and everything is out of place right now. Gender inequity, does it still exist? So what I did is I went through and did a very, very quick survey of some of the issues, some of the most recent issues that came out. And I would say, yes. I would say if we talk about sexism, if we talk about difference in sexes, it's still there. Still a hotbed that's being talked about all the time. Some people say it's there, some people say it's not, but the main issue is you can't ignore there are differences, and it's just a matter of how do we treat these differences. Now, it's not just with women. So here, we can talk about gender inequity in men too. And what's interesting is in 2013, there was actually a campaign by a corporation, not corporation, an organization called UN Women, who looked at sexism and how it was embedded in our society. And what they did, and you can see this in front of the mouths of these men, is that they put in STEM phrases in the Google search bar to see what would come up. And what you can see is that the terms kind of speak for themselves about society in some ways. What's interesting is, incidentally, if you do this now on Google, they actually address this issue. This doesn't come up anymore, so I thought that was really cool. So we see inequity, but yet we don't do anything about it. When we say, I don't see it where I am, or it doesn't affect me, or I don't do it, or I'm not, or yeah, but, the world doesn't change unless we change it. And so in some ways, the world doesn't change unless we talk about it in positive ways, in ways that can address it so that it doesn't happen anymore. Now, I had a slide, and like I said, I apologize for this being out of order. I'm not even sure why it's out of order, but if you take a look at this, the textbook definition of feminism, which is probably going to show up in the slide somewhere, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. That is the textbook definition. If you look in a dictionary, that is what it says. So, what are these social stigmas that come with that? When we talk about feminism, all of a sudden people think, oh, you've got to be a man hater or a lesbian, or you have to be superior, or somebody has a chip on their shoulder. Feminazi, right? It comes with all of these labels, so much so that people who really are feminists are afraid to say that they're feminists. Even though, if we go back to the original definition, all it really means is that we want equal rights for everybody. I'm going to just take a quick pause here and see if does anybody have any questions for me at all? And you can send me an IM or you can put it in local chat and I can address it. Okay, all good? Everybody else good?